Hey BA family, welcome to my channel where I talk about all things mental, social, emotional, and spiritual health. As we all know, we are in a time of quarantine and isolation and social distancing. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna stop putting out content, but I think I'm gonna just maybe make it a little bit more laid back. This is probably the dozenth time I've tried to record this video. So today I'm going to be talking about the concept of person-first language. Now, what is person-first language, right? That's the first thing. The concept, the idea of person-first language is when you take a mental illness, right? A disorder, you say depression, for example, and when you look at somebody who experiences depression, initially people have always said something like, oh, that person is depressed, I am depressed, right? And they identify themselves with the condition or the illness that they have. Person first language changes that around so that you don't look at somebody and say, oh, they're depressed. You look at somebody and say, hey, they have depression, right? I have depression. I have feelings of anxiety. And the whole purpose of that is to essentially take away separate the person from the illness. Take, for example, having something like a cold, right? Or, better yet, coronavirus, right? Now, if you have the coronavirus, you wouldn't say, oh, that person is coronavirus. I'm coronavirus. No, you would say they have coronavirus. I have the coronavirus. And the same thing with person first language is it recognizes a mental health disorder as a condition, right? By saying, oh, they have depression. They're experiencing depression right now. Saying it's the same thing as saying, oh, they're going through, they have the flu. They're experiencing a cold. Initially, when I first heard of this concept, I actually thought it was just kind of semantics. I didn't really think it mattered too much because, honestly, like it's just whatever, right? Like just call it how you see it and just let it be. Because, at the end of the day, it's a little trivial when there's a bigger issue at hand. That person has a condition. So why don't we just address that? It seems like it kind of takes away from the issue at hand, and it doesn't help us to actually do anything. It's just like how we talk about it. So to me, it always seemed kind of pointless, like it's not going to get anywhere. But the more and more I explore mental health, the more and more opportunities that I've had to volunteer and to work and to speak on and to write about it, I've actually learned that person first language it's one of those small habits that actually change the way you think. And it's a very subconscious and a very powerful thing because, for me, I'm a writer. I majored in English, and I understand the power of language, the power of words, and the way that you use your words, the way that you organize them, and the way that you set them up means different things, and you give more power to one idea than another based on how you phrase something, based on how you address somebody. And I'm going to show you just exactly how person first language does this. So one of the biggest obstacles to recovery and healing for anybody with a mental health condition or any sort of lived experience, or even just thoughts of suicide or anything, one of the biggest roadblocks is stigma. Now, stigma comes in different forms. It comes from other people externally treating us differently because we're going through XYZ situation, right? Or it comes from the self, right? People self-stigmatize all the time. They deny themselves treatment because they think there's something wrong with them if they ask for help. they deny how they're feeling and processing a situation, and so they avoid to cope. They turn to drugs or other substances to cope. So stigma is actually the biggest roadblock to recovery. And what person first language does is it slowly chips away at stigma, because in the way that you address somebody, you slowly start to destigmatize your approach. And if you practice this on yourself, then you start to destigmatize yourself as well. It implies, right? It implies a belief in recovery. It implies a belief that things will change, that things will get different, that this is just an external circumstance, that most of it is outside of your control, and so you should focus on what you can control, right? It's the approach of somebody who's actually growth minded. So when you look at a cold, right, and you say, oh, I have a cold, right? You don't say that as if to say, oh, I have a cold and I will always have a cold. No, you say, I have a cold, knowing that, you will get better. And so when you use person first language in the same way and say, I have depression, I'm experiencing depression, it subtly implies that this too shall pass. And just by tweaking it in that small way, you actually slowly give yourself permission in just small bits of just language and how you talk. You slowly give yourself permission to believe that recovery is possible. And if you talk about other people that way too, it also implies that that's how you view them as well. So what I've found that I actually really love about this is that it's this very subtle and low-key way to look at somebody experiencing depression, experiencing bipolar disorder, experiencing anxiety, or whatever mental illness there is. And it's a way to subtly say, hey, you are not your condition, you are a person, and you happen to have a condition. And that's why it's called person first language. But it's not this, and it's just this like subtle way that it just works itself into a conversation. And it is, like the best way to demonstrate your belief is through the way that you treat somebody, the way that you behave, the way that you what you do for somebody else. And if one of those things is just the way that you just normally converse with someone and how you see them and how you identify them, one of those beliefs that gets translated is that you see them as a person, and they are a human being, and they aren't associated with this mental illness. It's just something that is in their life, whether for the long haul or in the moment. But you still see them as a person, you see them as a human being. And it's not this like overpowering, like super loud way of declaring that. It just shows up in your behavior. It just shows up in how you talk to this person. It shows up in how you talk to yourself and how you treat yourself. And you're not declaring it, you're just subtly showing through who you are that you believe it to be true, that hey, they are a person. Hey, I am a person first before I am any sort of mental health condition. That's what I love about it. So if you want to know how to implement this in your life, it's you're not going to get it perfect. The first few times you're going to slip up and forget what is person first language and what isn't. But it just comes with practice, and it's just one of those things that you can easily Google and look up. And I think the biggest thing that you want to keep in mind when using person first language is that you treat any sort of condition or mental illness as an object. Treat it as this external thing, this don't give it personality traits, don't give it the power of associating it with anybody's identity. Just treat it like it's a possession, like it's this object. Oh, I have depression, I'm experiencing anxiety, right? as opposed to just identifying, oh, that person's depressed, that person is this. Just say that person has, right? So treat it like a possession. That would be the best way to start. And all it takes is just, being mindful 1 time out of 10, and then eventually just doing it 2 times out of 10 until you're mindful of it 10 times out of 10. That's the best way to approach it. And if you have any more questions or you want to add on to what I have to say, hey, hit up the comment section and let me know. So, bit of a shorter video today, but I hope you got a lot out of it, and I hope you didn't mind my scruffy look, because I am just chilling inside with, stuff to do from home. That being said, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit the like button. If you want to see more content, subscribe. And if there's somebody you think that would, enjoy this video, hit the share button and let them see it. And I hope that you're taking care of yourself during this pandemic and this crisis. I hope it's over soon, and I just wanted to say thank you to all those essential workers out there who are, working hard every single day to keep society going. As always, I'm John, The Bold Authentic Life, and I'll see you later.